Welcome to the First Story Young Writers Showcase. This event is part of the first ever Digital Young Writers Festival from First Story, England's leading creative writing charity for young people. The festival has a packed programme, including a brilliant In Conversation with young adult author Angie Thomas and one of our First Story young writers, Merin Kazi, as well as tips and exercises from a whole host of amazing writers. I have been a First Story writer in resident in Hampstead School in London, and we've got Hampstead School represented here today amongst the young writers, so I'm especially pleased to see that. I had a great time being a writer in resident in Hampstead School for 2 years, and it was really exciting to see how much the school, the young people, the parents got behind the development of these young writers, how overjoyed they were to see the kind of anthology, the words in print, but also to see the confidence of the young people growing over the programme and people wanting to come the next year and the next year. And I'm not there and the programme's going so strong. And it's just testament to the many writers in First Story that come into the schools and work alongside teachers that get involved in making this a sustainable thing so that different writers can come in different years and the kind of the ball keeps rolling and the momentum keeps growing and the young writers keep coming. And the anthologies, I think one of the big things that I loved about being part of it was seeing the professional look of these anthologies when they are in print and the book launches we did for the young people. But more than that, I think just the kind of respect for the writing and the journey that the young people went on to get to that stage. And so whether there were many drafts or many attempts to kind of like find the right idea to write about or the right piece to put in the anthology and getting the confidence to perform at the launch, there's so much that goes into it. And we are showcasing some of the young people that have been on that journey. And I'm really excited to introduce them to you. And yeah, we're going to hear from some of the young people first, and I'm going to read a piece for you as well. And as we hear from the young people, I'm going to offer them some feedback, as I would say if I was in their classroom and giving them a bit of friendly critique. But also, we're just here to celebrate the amazing work that they've done. So without any further ado, I'm going to ask the first young person to introduce themselves. So Chloe, will you say hello and read your piece for us?
Hello, I'm Chloe Carter from Appleton Academy and my piece is Invasion of Our Lives. 20th of March 2020, doors closed for the first time to a future of unknown fears and spontaneous symptoms arriving from the shadows. Material masks became manacles to our emotions, as our eyes became our mouths and our mouths were taken away. Children crying like adults in prison. That's what it's like for them now, prison. Don't touch him, they say. Mask on, 2 meters, they would demand. All for those selfish sinners who don't listen to make each rule more pointless. It was an ordinary day, looking forward to the new year after far too many icon losses and way too many terrorist tantrums who attacked to break even. School seemed normal. We were laughing, smiling, even trees would wave as we walked on by. Then things changed. 20th of March 2020. School's last day before the school closed for a week, a month, a year, who knows. It was calm though. In the beginning, when the roads were filled with dancing leaves and the factories so dormant and asleep, the sun would peer through your window just to say hello. Words would jump from pages as the blue skies pulled you outside with a book in your hand. Then your neighbour comes out. He's only about 10 but asks if he can come over. We have to say no to follow government guidelines. Awkward. You smile to help the atmosphere change its mood, but nothing helps this parallel world we live in. New rules are seen on TV. Parliament stood talking like animals locked in a cage. They don't listen to their people, but we don't listen to them. Antibodies, antitoxins, vaccines, not seen. 6 months out of school and we are questioning where we draw the line. Men in suits have ridden to a waterfall, where the only option is to fall with the water. But they won't do that. They'll float with the boat and keep dry, while nurses and doctors work tirelessly day and night to keep patients alive. There was a tense feeling that hung over England as news of lockdown lifting in Australia shook the core of many. Could this be a way out? 8 months of misery and self-seclusion might come to an end, but wait. News headlines read, "New variant of COVID-19 faster and stronger than ever," and "Vaccines make Pfizer work." Millions of social media voices take to Twitter and other platforms to declare their opinions, needed for the world to hear. But lovely dark lies started circulating around somewhere we didn't want negativity, our phones. We can avoid the TV, we don't need to see newspapers at the supermarket, and days of endless words jumping from pages gets tiring, and our phones become the last resort. Is there any way we can turn this around? People ask this question every day, but trying to see through media-forged manacles and messed up men trying to give rules they themselves can't even follow just creates a sense of misery and pain that will live on forever.
Let's give it up for Chloe. Thank you so much. Wow, Chloe. Tell us a bit about kind of the inspiration for that piece.
The inspiration for it was basically being in isolation, and the majority of the time for me, I spent it alone. So obviously with parents working quite a lot of the time, I was on my own. So that's where the inspiration came from.
Brilliant. And I really love the kind of water metaphor that you used there. Like, how did you decide on using water as one of the metaphors?
Well, obviously throughout lockdown, I was watching the news a lot more. And it was funny because obviously watching news and obviously Boris Johnson being on there talking about everything that's changing. And then the one thing that sort of inspired the waterfall idea was actually seeing an advert for a holiday. Even though holidays weren't allowed, I saw the advert for the holiday and thought that to use that as a metaphor for everything that they were talking about at the same time.
Brilliant. Yeah, it was a great central metaphor to your piece. It really kind of tied it together. I really love that piece, and I think so many people will be able to relate to the feelings that you expressed. And yeah, well done, Chloe. Thank you so much for sharing it. Let's give it up one more time for Chloe. Brilliant. So we're going to move on to our next writer now. Libby, are you there and are you ready?
Hi, my name's Libby Osborne. I'm from Children's School and my piece is called Please. In each life rain must fall, for the sky has no motion. Believe me, every heart has its secret sorrows, for we all have things we wish to never recall. An air of despondency dwells on you and swifts you off your feet like a flowing river. However, no sadness will stop the sun from shining or the sea from waving. So, learn how to be fluent with amity, for no words from you will ever fall on deaf ears. Those shiny days where freedom was okay, where nature was at the tip of our fingers, where even those who fell still sang, but a halt, a sudden stop to all which felt normality, and now even the sun doesn't sing its way through the day, so why should I? Like a thief in the night, COVID came, and now it seems it will never go away. The urge to recall what we want, but then remember it sends us into a hunch. We don't know when we will see the day. All we can do is hope the shiny days get back to their duties and become what seems to be normal again.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Libby. Let's give it up for Libby. Yeah, a lot of kind of resonances with Chloe's piece as well, like reflecting on the current time that we're in. A great water metaphor again with the river. So I love this line, every heart has its secret sorrows. I just think that can speak to so many people. We never know what other people are going through. That really stood out to me. And also, you introduced me to a new word, amity, meaning friendly relations with people. That's a great word. How did you pick that word to use in this piece?
Honestly, so the poem is mainly based on mental health during lockdown, because I think it was easier to hide away your feelings during lockdown because you wasn't seeing everybody, you wasn't going out. And I think that I chose the word amity because I wanted to also have a learning experience during lockdown while I was still inside. And so if I am being honest, I did search loads of words, and I think that amity really fit in with the type of thing that I was trying to portray through the poem.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think that's a great tip for other writers. We can say, being friendly, but we could look up what are the other words that could say that in an interesting way. And you've clearly done that. I really also love this phrase. You said, even those who fell still sang. And that really stood out to me. The idea that even those who maybe went through difficulties were still able to find the kind of joy of singing or using their voice. Is that what you were going for with that line?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. I'm glad I kind of got that. And then I love all we can hope to do. All we can do is hope for those shiny days. And just the idea of our days being shiny, that can be kind of from our kind of work. You know, when you shine something, I really love the idea of like making something shiny, and that can be down to our effort of how we look at the day, or how what we put into the day. So there were so many lovely phrases that really stood out. And yeah, I really want to applaud you for that. So thank you so much, Libby. Let's give it up for Libby. Thank you. Okay, Ben Stenhouse, will you say hello, introduce yourself and your piece?
Hello, my name is Ben Stenhouse. I go to TITUS School and my piece is called Lucid Dreaming. I sit up. I'm cold, very cold, as if I am in a freezer, curled up in sub-zero temperatures. Why am I here? Memories come to me of lying down in bed, tired as a sloth. That's it, I'm dreaming as usual, just having a normal, boring dream or forgetting the morning. A soft cackling comes from my window, quiet as a mouse, as creepy as a horror movie. A dream, I repeat, an uneasy smile settling across my face like a blanket. But this is not like other dreams. It is vivid, too vivid. A clown leaps through my curtains like a cannonball of fear, screaming a hideous laugh so high-pitched it could smash a window. I screech, but nothing comes out. It opens its jaw, brandishing horrible teeth. I recoil at the grotesque sight, close my eyes and whimper, any calm feelings gone and replaced with a wave of hopelessness so tall it would obliterate a tsunami. The horrible creature approaches me like a cat toying with its prey, savouring the moment. It is inches away from me now. I can almost feel its warty, bumpy face and taste its rotten, manky breath, panting down on me like a dog. Focus, I tell myself. It's just a dream. I only need to wake up and it will all be over. So I cannot wake up. With no hope, I curl up into a helpless ball and cry, accepting my horrible fate. Waking up, sweating buckets, I throw off my covers. My eyes flicker around the room, searching for danger. I find nothing. My shoulders slump and relax, surrendering themselves. I am free. I am safe. My mother bursts into my room, shrieking like a demon with red eyes. I leap back and immediately my back slams into a wall, sending pain up it like spikes impaling me. Menacing tendrils burst out of her back like snakes, and her mouth extends so big you could fit a cat in it. Her teeth like spears preparing to skewer me. I can do nothing but sit there and sob like a baby, crying my fear away. The horrible tendrils hone in on me like missiles, 4 of them in total, all equipped with deadly barbs. She bares her teeth and I curl up into a ball and cry. I wake up again. This time, though, I know what's coming, and I cannot stop it. I'm trapped forever in this never-ending loop of dreams, and I shall never get out. I scream to be set free, but the screaming only seems to bind me deeper into my terrible nightmare like a Chinese finger trap. The harder I try, the more I get stuck. I curl up into a ball and cry.
Let's give it up for Ben. Well done, Ben. Gosh, that piece was terrifying. There were so many moments that really kind of, I could picture it so vividly. Your descriptions were incredible. A clown leaps through my curtains like a cannonball of fear. I could see it and I could feel it, and I was there. And that whole clown description was, truly terrifying. And then the way you described emotion, a wave of hopelessness so tall it would obliterate a tsunami. Again, we got water running through all of your poems, and I think it makes such a good metaphor because it's such a strong force in nature that we can relate it to ourselves and our emotions as well. And what you did with the cat and the dog images was really interesting. So using both the nature or the kind of qualities of a cat and a dog, the horrible creature approaches me like a cat toying with its prey, and then rotten, manky breath panting down on me like a dog. I was getting so into being terrified by this monster. And then there was a monster mum. Like, it just got worse and worse. So scary. And it reminded me of like these kind of Christopher Nolan movies where, you know, you think you know what's going on and then it's a dream within a dream, or time has warped. I felt like you could have taken me in so many different directions, and there was nothing I could do about it. I was trapped like that Chinese finger trap. How did you come up with all these rich images? Like, did you know where it was going, or was it kind of unraveling as you wrote it like the dream, Ben?
I kind of made it up as I went along, but it was also like partly, I think, inspired by dreams I'd had myself. So, like that.
So you've actually dreamt up some of those things?
Kind of, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, I hope you sleep sound this evening. You're probably going to pass on your nightmares. The people watching this will now have clowns and monster moms with spikes coming out their backs, and huge, scary mouths. Well, thank you for terrifying us, Ben. Let's give it up for Ben. Brilliant. So next we're going to have Katie. Katie, take it away.
Hi, I'm Katie Parkinson. I'm from Longcroft School, and my piece is called Weighted Blanket. The girl sits on her hands in therapy. The lady says it's a comfort thing, which makes some sense to her. The room is never cold enough, but she likes the warmth of her thighs on her knuckles, the hot, numb static that bites at her skin when the session ends and she stands, flexing her fingers back and forth, counting them one by one. The lady smiles as always, tries to make a joke. The girl pushes out a laugh and looks at the ground. This is routine, familiar. It's a comfort thing. Could you tell me what's wrong? No, I know it's hard. It isn't. I don't even remember what happened. Then why do you look so frightened, girl? Why do you look so frightened? I'd like to go now. She forgets about it every week, returns home to her lover. She wakes up first, he wakes up second. She smiles more than she used to, and he doesn't know why. It takes her 3 days to notice the dog died. Too tired to bury it, she puts up with the smell. There's something to the rhythm of the life she's made, like a slow, steady heartbeat, vomiting blood into the arteries and out through the veins. Long, muggy days and thin, lonely nights. How she counts his breaths like sheep until she blinks and wakes up in the morning. It's soothing, reminds her of the way she would suck on her arms and lick away the teeth marks as a child. That warm, numb, familiar feeling. A routine that she makes and she likes and she keeps. The lady is there every week and they talk and it helps, and she forgets and they talk. Her lover is there the rest of the time, but there's only enough food for one in the house and he never really eats it. Her bed is cramped, she's sure he'd never fit. She misses his arms around her, so she buys 3 heavy blankets. Her lungs have to heave while she sleeps. It seems sometimes she's too young to be lonely. It seems sometimes she's too old to be alive. Could you tell me what's wrong? He left me. Who? And the house has maggots. Why is that? I've been sleeping better. Why is that, girl? Why is that? I'd like to go now. She decides that it's time she buried the dog. Taking an afternoon and a shovel from the garage, she makes her hands busy for a while. It's easy, really. The ache gives her focus, lets her see all the sharp edges for once. She can't remember how long it's been since he went, and she doesn't feel much different. Can't even remember his name. The blankets she bought are identical, the weights clipping her skin if she doesn't take care. Carrying them around, she's gotten some strength back, and it's nice, but she wishes they were heavier. Still can't afford to buy a 4th. She wakes up with a mouthful of dirt. Pitch black, a warm, wet thing wrapped around her left ankle. When she claws back up to the surface, spits a beetle from her mouth, her eyes start to water in the stinging midday light. The dog and the shovel have been left by the side of the pit. She feels more rested than she has in weeks. Could you tell me what's wrong? I'm lonely. What else? I'm tired. I see. Who are you? This isn't about me, girl. Does it hurt? Yes. Why? I'm too young to fix things. I'm too old to want to. She sleeps in the garden now, the pit she made. She walks around in the dark and stands for hours in heavy rain, washing herself in the thick drumming of the earth, engulfing, crushing, comforting. She lives where the worms do, blind, frightened little creatures, safe from the cracking hot danger of the sun. She walks to her neighbour's pool at midnight, swims to the bottom and sits there for hours. She doesn't drown. Her lungs remember things heavier than water, sharper than chlorine. When she leaves, she isn't found, dragging her sopping clothes behind her, and she notices in the garden there's a patch of grass grown thicker than the others, more vibrant, where the dog used to be. She's jealous of it, really. It seems so romantic to decay into the earth, return to what made you, feed the ground and the birds and be washed away forever. Nothing so frightening about that, she says. And she knows she is terrified of death. The beaches she visits are wide and vast and lonely. She gives in, buys tickets to an aquarium instead, stands in the glass tunnel until she's told it's time to leave. Looking up, she pretends there's more than air above her, pictures thousands of tons of water, the way it rests and barely sways like some slow, ancient creature. Still can't afford to buy a fourth. Could you tell me what's wrong? Do you enjoy this? Do you? I couldn't say. Her fingers are numb. Are you ready to go? No. I will be, though. She knows full well what will happen to her, how she'll stay for now, keep the routine, sit on her hands and drift through the months. How one day she will swim and swim and swim to the bottom of the ocean, push past coral reefs and hulking shapes with lungs the size of her, old and slow, have her eyes turn soft and milky in the boundless black of the deep sea, reach the final sandy bank and lay there safe as can be. Let the water be still and rest on her aching body, carve a hole there, break her, make her into nothing, and sleep where no one can hear her, where no one can see her, where no one will ever find her again.
Let's give it up for Katie. Oh, thank you so much, Katie. That piece is a real journey. And I can see that theme of water that we seem to have running through all the pieces was there for you as well. Why was water such a strong thing for you to write about? In that kind of latter part of that piece, it was like the main theme or metaphor. Tell me a bit more about why you chose that.
Well, I mean, the kind of whole, I guess, running theme of it is the idea of, weight and like pressure. It kind of, the whole idea for the piece kind of originated with kind of where it ends off, the idea of, the bottom of the ocean, how heavy it is, how much just pressure and immense weight there is, but the idea of that being something both frightening and comforting. And so, yeah, the kind of then sort of swimming pool and all that just kind of all came together into it. Yeah.
Brilliant. I see that really clearly when you put it that way, that weight is the kind of theme, and what weightier thing could you have than being at the bottom of the ocean? And I love that first line, the girl sits on her hands in therapy, because for me that kind of threw up other ideas of like, when you're sitting on your hands, does it mean you don't want to take action? But then it's also about the comfort of weight, and that's what the therapist says, it's like a comfort thing. But your kind of use of language is so great throughout this poem. You do a lot of mirroring and repetition. Certain lines come back and take on new meaning when you bring them back. I really loved, it seems sometimes she's too young to be lonely. It seems sometimes she's too old to be alive. So powerful and chilling as well. And then you did some really great imagery with this whole being in the pit. And so you really took us there. So she wakes up with a mouthful of dirt. We are as disoriented as the girl. We don't know why she got a mouthful of dirt. Pitch black, a warm, wet thing wrapped around her left ankle. She claws back up to the surface, spits out a beetle. And you're like, whoa, okay, like that really kind of takes you by surprise. And I love the journey of being there, not knowing what's going on, and suddenly kind of working out that she's kind of coming out of this pit. And then you did something really great with individual words, engulfing, full stop, crushing, full stop, comforting. And I think that's something that some of the other writers have done as well, where you use one word as a complete sentence and it can be so powerful. How did you do that, kind of playing with length of your lines? So some being kind of more lengthy lines and some being single words. How do you make that decision of where to put a full stop?
I think for me, I mean, this is kind of like halfway between a prose piece and a poem. I usually write poetry, and so kind of doing something a bit more sort of long form. I still like really like care about the rhythm and how everything comes together and just sounds. You know, like I also really love music, and so that kind of the pacing and the rhythm and the sound and the kind of cadence of a piece of writing is kind of really important. And like honestly, it is kind of just throwing things at the wall until it kind of just sounds right when you read it. You know, this I probably should think a bit more about it, but I just kind of, you know, go for it until it sounds right.
Brilliant. So as you're writing a piece, do you read it out loud as well to hear how it sounds for you?
Yeah, I do like to do, like, if I'm getting a bit stuck or I've read it too many times and now it just sounds like blah, I do like to read it out loud. Sometimes I'll even record myself, which, you know, no one likes hearing the sound of their own voice, but it is helpful.
It is. That's a great tip for anyone watching. You know, record yourself and hear how it sounds and see how that might help you punctuate the piece or break the lines differently. So thank you for sharing that wisdom with us, Katie. Let's give it out one more time for Katie. Brilliant. Okay, so it's my turn to share a piece. So I've got a piece from my book, The Black Flamingo, that I'd love to share with you. And this one is called I Come From. I come from shepherd's pie and Sunday roast, jerk chicken and stuffed vine leaves. I come from travelling through my taste buds, but loving where I live. I come from a home that some would call broken. I come from DIY that never got done. I come from waiting by the phone for him to call. I come from waving the white flag to loneliness. I come from the rainbow flag and the Union Jack. I come from a British passport and an ever-ready suitcase. I come from jet fuel and fresh coconut water. I come from crossing oceans to find myself. I come from deep issues and shallow solutions. I come from a limited vocabulary but an unrestricted imagination. I come from a decent education and a marvellous mother. I come from being given permission to dream but choosing to wake up instead. I come from wherever I lay my head. I come from unanswered questions and unread books, unnoticed effort and undelivered apologies and thanks. I come from who I trust and who I have left. I come from last year, and I don't notice how I've changed. I come from looking in the mirror and looking online to find myself. I come from stories, myths, legends and folk tales. I come from lullabies and pop songs, hip-hop and poetry. I come from griots, grandmothers and her storytellers. I come from published words and strangers' smiles. I come from my own pen, but I see people torn apart like paper, each a story or a poem that never made it into a book. Thank you. Yeah, and I think this one relates to kind of first story in a way because, you know, we, are all, you know, putting our work out there. And I think so many people wouldn't have the kind of the confidence or the opportunity to put their work out there in this way that you are. So I think you should be incredibly proud for kind of writing and sharing what you have to say and, giving that to the world, because it's a very generous thing to do. It's a brave thing, but a very generous thing to do, to put your words out there. And people may see themselves reflected in the stories you've put out and the poetry that you put out. They might find some emotional truth that they can relate to or gain empathy and understanding from hearing your words and how you tell these stories. So let's hear some more. So BELLASTAR, will you introduce yourself? Hampstead School in the house, yeah.
Hello, my name is BELLASTAR Martin. I'm from Hampstead School and my poem is called We're Losing Our Grips on Reality. Time against our mind, what dread, the draining of focus beyond time's care. Have mercy on our bodies, we're losing our grips, but your handyman taunt us with its tick-tick. The screaming of eyes, the beg for release. We got too much on our minds, but it's protest for sleep. No peace for me, not yet, until I've done what I need to get.
BELLASTAR, thank you so much. Yes, I really love this poem, and it's beautifully laid out on the page as well. So I want to commend you for what you've done, both in the writing and the kind of crafting of the poem on the page. I really love as well that you've kind of made time a character in this piece. So the handyman of time being the clock. Am I right? Yeah, and that was really cool, the way you've kind of looked at what time does, and the way you've laid it out on the page, which people can't see, is that the words are running kind of backwards across the page. Tell us about your kind of layout. Oh yeah, you're going to show it to us. Thank you. Yes, that's brilliant.
It might be flipped on the camera,
But yeah, it's a great layout. Tell us about how you kind of wrote that piece, and how important was how you're going to present it on the page when you wrote it.
For the workshop lesson, our theme was about how we were feeling for that day. And to be honest, I was feeling quite tired. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to write about how tired I am. I wanted to put like a sort of cartoonish feel to the poem, so I thought I put like Z's, because that's often like something you see in cartoons when a character is sleeping. So I thought I'll try to type it up like this.
Awesome. And yeah, and that's, what's it like seeing your work there in print? Like, what is that like to hold a book with your words in? Tell us about that experience.
It's a really nice feeling, because I never thought I'll be able to have like my own book or something that I contributed to published. And it's nice to see like it was other students, not just my year group, working together to make this one thing. And I think everyone was really proud of how it turned out. And I'm just like grateful to be able to have the opportunity to take part in this workshop, because I feel like from starting doing the first story workshop, I have developed and have more confidence in writing poetry. Like before it, because I'm in year 11 now, in year 9, I started writing poetry. I never considered it as a hobby for myself, but now I and then start writing poetry in my free time. So I think it was a good opportunity.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, BELLASTAR. Let's give it up one more time for BELLASTAR. Thank you. And now we're going to have ANISA. ANISA, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is ANISA AFSAR. I'm from COOKE Academy Grange and I'm reading the book Talks. I was sitting in the old abandoned library when I had heard a mysterious whisper say, "Hello, I'm lost." I thought it was a little girl, so I headed towards the centre of the library where I'd heard the voice. As I was walking, I heard a rattling noise behind me. I turned around and saw a navy blue book drop onto the floor. I looked at it, then I looked up at the shelf. It must have been loose, I thought. I picked up the book and decided to flick through it. Looking back at this, I wish I told myself to go and look for that lost girl in this huge possessed library. But instead, I decided to flip through the pages of the book. As I did, I realized all the pages had holes in them. The holes went straight through the book. Looking at it, I grabbed the bottle, looking at it suspiciously. It was clear and had a crystal blue liquid in it. The bottle read, "A drop on the floor creates a magic touch." I didn't understand this, so I opened the lid and decided to drink a little. Before I could, a force pushed my hand, knocking the bottle. It fell to the floor. A damp golden smoke rose from the bottle. The smoke began to form into shape. It had a spine and a cover with lots of sparkly pages. There were eyes and a mouth. What is happening? I looked at the book for a whole 5 seconds before...
"Well then, girlie, talk,"
said the book in a high, squeaky voice. I stuttered, trying to answer.
Oh, I see.
It said.
You don't know about me, do you?
It was obviously annoyed. What do you mean? Of course I don't know about you. The book twitched a little and looked angry.
Listen here, girl. I'm the head of all the books in the library. You read here so often. I thought you knew about me. And seeing a talking book, isn't that shocking, is it?
It snapped. Yes, it is. I'm a human being. The book grinned and laughed.
Oh, let's stop dilly-dallying and just get on with this, shall we? Just say, mystic, mysterious, marvellous, magic, and we'll be done.
I blinked. Mystic, mysterious, marvellous magic. What on earth does that?
Let's give it up for ANISA. Who was doing the second voice for you there?
My librarian, Miss Blashill.
Thank you for that appearance, voicing the book. That was really cool and so fun. What a kind of adventure story there. So how did you come up with that? Do you spend a lot of time in the library? Is the library an inspiring place for you?
Yeah, I really enjoy reading books, I guess. When I wrote it, it was the first time I ever really got into books and I started liking them. When we first did First Story, we were making maps. We made a map of the floor and then we had two different areas of it. So it was the old town and then the new town. And the old town was all where it was huge and everything. And we had a bunch of different sites in it, I guess. And one of my favorite places was the library. And I wanted to base one of my stories there. And they said, come up with an object to be the main base of your story. And I thought, okay, but it's going to be a library. So I wanted it to be a book or something special like that.
Brilliant. And whilst there are, some things are discovered, some things are left unexplained. So that voice, did you purposefully make things kind of stay unexplained? So whose voice was that, or what happens after those words are said at the end? What choices did you make there?
I just decided to add a cliffhanger because I thought it'd be fun. And if I ever wanted to continue the story, I didn't have to already know what happened. I could just add on if I ever wanted to. I didn't need to know because I still don't know what's going to happen.
Oh, you don't know either? Okay, because I was going to ask you. I want to know. I want to know who the girl was that needed help. I want to know what happened when they said those words. And I think that means it's a great cliffhanger and you've created a great mystery because your reader wants to know more. So if you ever do write more, we're definitely going to want to read along and find out what happens next. Was Alice in Wonderland an inspiration for you at all when you wrote that piece?
Kind of, I guess. Yeah, it was kind of like the Wonderland and kind of like Aladdin with a genie object, I guess. Yes. So it was kind of like a Disney twist on it, I guess. Yeah.
Great. Alice in Wonderland meets Aladdin. I love it. I can see that already. That was really cool. There was one thing about your character. I thought they were pretty bold. They were going to just drink some random thing they found in a book and they...
There's a bit of a backstory, I guess. Yeah.
Does she have a backstory? What makes your character so bold?
She's kind of like a tomboy, I guess. She's like dropped out of college, bad parents, I guess. Dead little brother is one of my things that she has.
Oh, wow. You know a lot about this character.
Yeah.
Are you going to write more stories with her in? Because she sounds really cool. Like lots to draw on there with that backstory.
Maybe, yeah, I guess so. Maybe in the future, yeah. I do like her character, yeah.
Great. All right. Well, I hope to read more of that wonderful character, more of your brilliant writing in the future. Let's give it up for ANISA. Brilliant. All right. Now we are going to hear from Emily. Emily, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm from the DUKERIES Academy and my piece is called At 4 p.m. My foot, an escapist, steps out onto weeds, toes curling in my shoes at the thought of a decision taken from me, some new rule. I breathe in outside and think that this is love, when lungs gorge on raw air and crave it like a kiss. My freedom is similar to the sparrow that sings hidden. I look towards her and she flies across the road through slipstreams into another's green. My sneakered feet mirror, fly on to deliver some message of independence, now exposed to the afternoon blush of the sun. acting flaneur in a small English village, where the shapes stay the same, and you have to look hard to notice some sort of difference. Make it up. I crush insects on the pavement, step on dried out leaves, and kick stones in a fit of boyish lust, walking on to nowhere until I circle back in twilight.
Let's give it up for Emily. Thank you so much, Emily. That was such an incredible piece. Very relatable for those of us that take our regular walks. And I love that at 4 p.m. For you, could you unmute? Was it is that when you've kind of finished up school for the day, or were you writing from imagination or from your own experience? What was going on there?
So this was definitely from my own experience, and it was during the period where we weren't at school, sort of in winter time. And I just had this clear image of me every single day at 4 p.m. going out on the walk when the sun's just beginning to set. And I just thought, why not write a poem about it?
Definitely, and what a poem. I love the first line, my foot and an escapist steps out. It really sets the tone, and really high expectations of like your command of language, your use of punctuation, and that strong image that you have there, my foot and an escapist steps out. It gives a lot of agency to that foot and gives us a lot of the sense of what you're longing for, or what the voice of the poem is longing for, that escape from kind of the mundane and looking for a sense of adventure. And that my lungs gorge on raw air and crave it like a kiss. I was just like, when I heard that, I was like, what is raw air? And it didn't matter that I didn't entirely know, because I was like, is it unpolluted air or is it something else? What makes air raw air? How did you choose the phrase raw air?
So after staying inside a lot, you sort of like, you notice that the air's different inside than outside, and like I sort of felt claustrophobic, sort of like I almost couldn't breathe indoors, and like as soon as you step outdoors you notice that difference. It's cold, and I just thought it sounded that the word raw, it has a nice sound, I don't know, and raw air, crave, I just liked the combination of those words together.
It's a great combination. I could feel it. And then you introduced me to a new word, flaneur, someone who saunters around observing society. How did you pick that word? Where did that word come into your kind of mind from?
So like while studying poetry at school, I came across the word, and apparently it's like meant to be exclusive to someone wandering around Paris. It's like a Parisian word, French word. And I thought it'd be kind of funny because I'm walking around an English village and there's not much to see, but it still had that kind of vibe that I was an observer. But it was kind of ironic because I'm only walking past houses and trees.
Yes. And I love this short sentence, make it up. There was something about that was just really like an invitation to kind of like use your imagination, or kind of like make your own adventure. Is that what that line is about? Make it up.
Yeah, it is about that. You know, when I think I used when shapes stay the same, and sort of like you see the same thing, it's routine every day. You sort of have to take in your environment and make it your own, make it personal.
Yeah, and I think that's really lovely for what we're all doing today, because stories can kind of help us make up our own adventures, or, you know, see that everyday walk in a really interesting and unique way, which you have done there. So I hope people watching today might, you know, look at their daily walk differently next time they go out, like see what they can see and write about it in as if they were the flaneur, and like adventuring and observing and seeing these things for the first time. So I feel like you may have inspired lots of walking poems to come in the future. So well done, Emily. Let's give it up for Emily one more time. Incredible work. Okay, so our next reader is going to be Ben Cook. Ben, will you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Ben Cook. I'm from Hull Trinity House Academy, and my piece is called The Final Records. Presented to you is written records of video clips found on an abandoned camera discovered at the bottom of the ravine belonging to Sean Henry and Heather Jameson. The records have been written for your enjoyment. The forest was dim and dense, a perfect habitat for the tweeting birds. However, the birds weren't the only thing making noise within the tall trees. Twigs snapped as Heather ran towards where she thought the edge of the woods were. Her rucksack bounded on her back, and it groaned slightly. She saw Sean just ahead of her and sped rapidly towards him. "Are you okay? What happened back there?" cried Sean as he helped Heather to keep her balance. "Just shut up, where?" she began, before being cut off by a distant shout. "Stop! Stay where you are," came the voice. Sean looked behind Heather and saw a towering figure wearing a military uniform, pointing a bulky gun at the pair of them. "Drop the bag and hand it over." "Sean, I'm going to ask you something extremely important," Heather whispered, whilst Sean stared at the man and Heather in disbelief. He couldn't explain the event that was happening right before his eyes. "Sean," Heather demanded, "run." It was at that moment that the pair of them began to tread a far distance in an attempt to escape the supposed soldier. The leaves that they trekked upon were sticky and attached to their sneakers. Sean knew where the car was, so sprinted off to the left. When Heather spied on this, she followed in his footsteps. Once again, the bag started to groan, this time more manically, and shake violently. Heather knew the thing that lurked inside of the bag. As she switched directions, her red hair swished in front of her eyes. The blue puffer jacket she wore nearly slipped off over her arms before she still succeeded in changing direction after Sean. Gunshots were heard behind her as she dexterously vaulted over thick trunks and kept her eyes fixated on Sean's tartan shirt as they sped in the direction of the van. Sean jumped into the driver's seat and turned on the ignition. Panic rushed through Heather's bones as she climbed within the rear of the moving vehicle. The van revved up and trundled along the dirt path. Sean pushed it into second gear, still holding his foot onto the accelerator, racing the year-old van towards the edge of the woods. Heather climbed in front, leaving her bag in the back as they flew to the right onto a road. Only a couple of miles until they were finally safe. Heather glanced at the rearview mirror and noticed two jeeps covered in camouflage nets driving into their rear end. A million thoughts began to rush through Sean's mind. What did Heather do? Why is the military taking fire at two teenagers? And what was making that mysterious groaning sound? Another bullet ricocheted off of the van's bumper as it reached the edge of Lilliopa. It was then that the jeep stopped in the middle of their tracks. They physically chose not to cross the barrier. They were the military, weren't they? That was the only question Sean could keep at the front of his mind as they drove to the tin can of a hut that they called a den. The thing that was inside the bag began to scrabble ferociously, like it was a person that couldn't breathe. Heather heaved it onto her back as Sean stared at her with stern eyes behind his blonde fringe. She wiped her hands on her joggers. She seemed calm, too calm. "What?" she asked, concerned about the expression that Sean held upon his face. He turned towards the den without a word. Finally, he said, "We need to talk."
Let's hear it for Ben. Or give it up for Ben. I know we can't hear. I love these jazz hands. Ben, that was incredible. I know that is a longer piece and it goes on to reveal some of the things you've set up. But how do you get into this kind of genre of writing? Do you read a lot of kind of adventure and mystery or sci-fi? What were your inspirations?
Well, I think the main inspiration was at the time of writing this, we were looking at dystopian stories in school, because this was like an unfinished piece that I found on my computer from a year ago that I decided to finish only a week ago. And the piece itself was centered around a dystopian world where I wanted to basically bring in the theme of aliens into the fact that they've already taken over civilization and they've basically taken over and have found traces of humans since they didn't believe they existed.
Wow, cool. So you kind of create a lot of tension off the bat in that piece. You've got them running from the military, or are they the military? And there's the thing in the bag, and that really got me hooked. We want to know what's in the bag, and I know that gets revealed later on, or you've kind of alluded to it there as well. But how do you work intention into your piece? I think some ways you did it were by asking questions. What did Heather do? Why is the military firing at two teenagers? They were the military, weren't they? Were questions a big way of kind of getting the reader hooked, or how did you kind of come across kind of using questions to kind of create tension?
Well, I just kind of wanted to project the stress of a million thoughts at once into someone. Like if you're trying to process so many things, because the more things that you need to question, obviously the more tense it is, but sometimes you also have the quiet tensity. But this is more going for the exaggerated tensity, where there's a lot more things happening, a lot more problems, a lot more issues, and it needs to build up the stress. So it implants all these thoughts into your head as well. So when you're reading it, it's like those are the thoughts that he's thinking, but they're projecting onto you.
Brilliant. Yeah, you totally get us in the head, and we feel that pressure and that tension and, the urgency of the piece. And then, you've got one character like that with these questions going a million miles an hour in their head. And then you've got this other character who seemed calm, too calm. I think that was really cool use of short sentence there. You went, she seemed calm, too calm. And that kind of contrast of the two characters. How did you create those two characters? Did you kind of know that they'd be very different from the outset to give a contrast, or what were they based on?
Well, I kind of wanted, I think one of them was based off one of my friends who always seems to jump into dangerous situations all the time and always seems perfectly fine afterwards. And the other one was kind of basically designed to be the opposite, one that wouldn't dive in and would ask the questions later and kind of take on a form of leader in the group.
Brilliant. And I think that brings a lot of balance to the story and gives, a great sense of like two different people reacting to the same situation entirely differently. I really hope you keep writing that piece. I think there's a whole book in that. If you're up for it, I think you should keep going and kind of build that world, because I think it's a world lots of people would be interested in reading. So keep writing that piece, Ben. All right, let's give it up for Ben. So now it is time for Erin. Erin, are you ready? Thank you for your patience, and I hope you've enjoyed everything you've heard so far, and take it away.
Hi, I'm Erin. I go to LANDAU FORTE College, and this is my piece called Summertime. I miss the summertime. We're having a picnic, splayed out on the grass like little kids again. I've kicked off my shoes and laid on my back, staring up at the sky. We'll get grass stains on your socks, she chides. But I don't mind. All I can think about is the golden kiss of the sun on my skin, already reddening under its warmth. How good it feels to be here, I think. What a blessing it is that the sun rises each morning. What a blessing it is that I get to bask in her light. The sky shifts and we're on her patio. I can hear the humming of the lights inside, feel the thick, humid air that swallows us up. The sun above has begun to set, bathing everything in a honey-coloured haze. I can still feel her warmth. It radiates from her like there's a fire that's always burning in her ribcage. We're in our own little world, I tell myself, the space that exists between dreaming and real life. She cups the orange with soft hands, thumbs on either side of the seam as she splits it down the centre. She sets one half down on the plate and hands one half over to me. Thank you, I say, but I hope she can hear the words that hang unspoken. Thank you, I love you, I want you to know this, but I can't say it out loud. I watch as she breaks apart one of the wedges, peels away the pith with nimble fingers. As she bites, sticky orange juice starts trickling down her fingers, the bursting skin. I take a bite of my own, sour and biting, and swallow my words down with it. We move again, and the evening has drawn in now, fully. Pitch blackness fills in the hollow space between our hands, seeping into every groove of her palm. We've been sitting here for hours. It's raining, she tells me, and it is. The gentle spitting has begun to quicken, and soon it's too hard to make out the tree line through the rain. I watch as she breaks away, sprints into the grass. Come on, she calls, and her voice rings out through the fog, sweet and clear and bright. She's laughing wildly, hair messy and plastered to her face in the soaking rain. It reminds me of my early summers, before her. Afternoons spent in the grass, slathered in sunscreen and dancing under the hose spray, giggling like idiots. A few summers later, we would abandon our floaties, upgrade to water pistols. I'd remember those days until the day I died. Those were some of the best times of my life, but now I can't imagine a summer without her. I follow her out onto the grass. It sticks to my legs and soaks my socks through, but I don't mind. She was right, I think. I got grass stains. I don't know how long we stood there in the rain, soaking up every second of it, praying the day would never end. I could still taste orange juice, sour and biting. By the time we were back inside, we were drenched and we'd giggled as we wrung out our hair. I miss the summertime, and I find myself hoping she misses me too.
Let's give it up for Erin. Oh, beautiful. Erin, what a writer you are. I really love the kind of simple gratitude of the lines where you said how good it feels to be here. I think what a blessing it is that the sun rises each morning. It just made me reflect and feel incredibly grateful to hear those kind of words put so clearly and simply. But I think you give the reader so much privilege into the thoughts of your character, because, you know, we hear when they say thank you, and then you get to hear what they don't get to say. Thank you, I love you, I want you to know this, but I can't say it out loud. It was just, I felt so let in to the world of this this character, to their inner world, as well as what they're kind of experiencing with summertime, and that kind of character that feels like it could be the season or it could be a person, and it's kind of somewhere in between. What is going on is kind of both. It's like missing a person or missing a season at the same time. Everything you did with the orange was just really lovely and sensual, and how you brought it back the second time, that orange, was just really skillfully done. And I was really intrigued by your lines about the pitch blackness filling the hollow space between hands, and I felt like there was something ominous in that. What were you doing with that? Because it felt like the kind of the blackness in between the holding of hands was like, was it just nightfall, or was there something else being alluded to? Am I reading too much into it? Tell me.
Well, I guess because, well, earlier I say that there's a lot of things that I just don't know how to say to her, and I guess it was sort of bringing that back where we're holding hands, but there's a sort of distance between us, like a space we're orbiting each other and not fully colliding.
Yeah, I felt that. I thought that was really powerful. And it felt like this other character was in control in a way. There was something you did, and I was just really marveled at it when you were like, it's raining, she tells me, and it is. And so it's like you're reporting her speech, but also the weather, and it gives the impression that the she is in control of the weather. It's almost like she made it rain, which kind of just feels incredible. Like that sentence, it's raining, she tells me, and it is. How did you construct that sentence? Was it something, did you think about all those things when you wrote it, or am I just, tell me about it.
I guess it's just sort of, it was partially about the flow and like making it all like have a rhythm, but it's also sort of like when you're with someone and you really appreciate their company and spending time with them, you don't really pay attention to everything around you. And then they say something and it breaks you out a bit and you realize everything that's happening around you.
Brilliant. Okay, I totally get that. And then I saw this so cinematically, especially when you've described her laughing wildly, hair messy and plastered on her face in the soaking rain. It was like this character that you almost never get to see what she looks like, because there's so many times where we see hands and the orange peeling and the hand holding, and then when you describe her face, the hair is over her face, so we never get to see who she is. So it's like she could be anyone, but that's the kind of magic of it. She's this kind of person that's drifted away, and I just think that was just something so powerful in the way you describe this character without even giving us a sense of what they look like entirely, and it like almost a fading memory. Is that kind of what you were going for with this piece?
Yeah, I wanted to sort of break the character down into more intimate parts. Like, instead of just being a whole person, it's a collation of all my experiences with them.
Beautiful. Well, I think that was so wonderfully done, and just want to congratulate you on a brilliant piece. So let's give it up one more time for Erin. Woo! What a wonderful, rich array of writing. I think everyone who shared today should be so incredibly proud. I am really proud of all of you for kind of sharing your pieces so confidently and being able to talk about them. You know, you didn't know what I was going to ask you. You know, we didn't prepare that part. I just wanted to be curious and nosy about your writing process. And I can tell that you have really put so much thought and work and effort into the pieces that you shared with us today. So I think we should all be incredibly proud. Let's give each other a huge well done, jazz hands. Well done, everyone, for your involvement. Oh, hello, Miss Blashill. Come off mute and say hello. It's lovely to see one of the teachers there. You're ANISA's librarian, right?
I am. Unfortunately, Anissa's had to go. Her mum's waiting outside. So she's gone and I'm sitting in her hot seat.
Thanks for being here. You've heard all the pieces of the young people today, haven't you?
We've been here all the time, myself and Mr. Bradshaw. We've heard all the pieces. It's been a brilliant event.
Brilliant. Any words of encouragement for the writers that you've heard today? Anything you want to say about how it's been being part of First Story from a teacher perspective?
We love being part of First Story, and we cannot believe the things that our students write. And you know, now we're getting to see what other students write as well. It's just amazing. There's so much talent out there. It's brilliant. We're really proud of all our students.
Thank you, and thank you for enabling them. You know, it's you that helps make this happen. So thank you so much for the support that you've given your students. And and that's to all the teachers watching. Thank you so much for supporting the students being part of this program, and for watching today and supporting the students that have shared today. So thank you to all the fantastic readers, all the First Story schools, teachers, librarians, parents and guardians who have made this possible. You can find out more about the First Story Young Writers Programme by visiting firststory.org.uk. And there are so many other fantastic events in the festival for you to check out. So please go and enjoy all of those and share them as far and wide as you possibly can. And happy writing, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us.